So I appreciate you stopping me to talk. So do you want to start by introducing yourself?
My name's Jack Palladino.
Jack, awesome, Jack. Nice talking to you. So I'm going to start again, right? The definition of veganism is we reject the commodification status of sentient animals, right? So you don't want to kill them, abuse them, or use them for food, clothing, entertainment, etc., right? So I guess I'll start by asking, are you currently vegan?
I'm not. On the weekends, maybe.
Okay. So what exactly do you disagree about that definition?
I don't really disagree. It's just something I don't do, I should say.
Okay. So,
I actually do have a question.
sure.
So, what is like the main like source of food for vegans, or like protein, or like what are you substituting that meat and?
Yeah. So the majority. So even if you're eating meat, you are also eating plants. So most of our diet already calorically is based on plants. It's just we just eat meat or dairy or certain products. So what I do is instead of having meat or I guess cow flesh or pork or whatever, I just substitute it for a vegan protein source. Could be black beans and rice, could be chickpeas, could be lentils.
So what's your daily diet? Like, what do you, breakfast, lunch, dinner?
Yeah, so breakfast I'll eat some cereal with some soy milk, with some flax seeds.
A certain type of cereal, or we're good?
Vegan cereal, but you could get anything, like Quake, Cap'n Crunch is vegan, you could eat whatever.
Get rid of Frosted Flakes.
I'd have to check, but you're probably good. And then I'll have fruit throughout the day.
Fruits, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have fruit throughout the day. I'll have some extra protein, like whether it be edamame or black beans and rice or something.
Edamame,
Yeah.
a bit of salt.
Yeah, exactly, and it's super good for you, super high in protein.
Really?
Half a cup of edamame has like 15 grams of protein.
Every time I go to the Chinese restaurant next to me, do I eat the whole bowl?
Yeah, that's like 20, 25 grams of protein right there.
No shit.
Oh yeah, and
I eat those all the time.
And then for dinner, I'll have like a soup, like either some ramen or maybe I'll cook something. It depends. So yeah, that's my day.
So is soy like a big part of it? Soy?
It can be. It doesn't have to be. I love soy. Some people don't, so you don't have to
So you
eat
can't
soy.
drink milk either.
No, I drink soy milk.
Like regular milk, because
That's dairy. Yeah, that's milk. Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously, like with soy, like they do like mass farming for soy, right? And I mean, do you have any farming background? Have you ever farmed or have any family that's farmers or anything like that?
Yeah. So I don't have any farmers, but in terms or farming background, but in terms of the soy, the majority of soy, I think it's over 70%, is grown to feed to livestock. So we actually use all that land. The number one cause of deforestation is livestock, right? Is animal agriculture. So a big one, like if we are worried about the devastation that's involved in growing crops, the majority of them are fed to the animals that we then kill to eat. So it's pretty much like cutting out the middleman, just eating the plants ourselves. So that's kind of a big one. But did you have more to say about that?
Yeah, actually, I've heard that like with big like mass production farming of any sort, especially big with soy, is like those guys obviously, like since that is a product that they're putting out, that they will often with farming there is rodents and animals
crop deaths. Yeah.
So yeah, they'll come in and they'll shoot those animals that are trying to get into their crops and stuff. So how does that now in turn support the veganism if like a big part of planting those crops and keeping them secure so that you can sell them, but then you're also killing animals left and right to keep that from being.
Sure. I would say it's at a less percentage. They're still going to the benefit of helping animals.
He sounds like a vegan already, but I'll explain that, right? So when it comes to crop deaths, right, there's two things. Number one, I actually haven't seen, I would love to see some actual research showing how many crop deaths occur for how many square foot of cropland versus the amount of animals we kill, right? Because we slaughter animals by the billions. So we slaughter animals by the billions, right? Not only do we slaughter them, but we breed them. So in terms of crop deaths, I haven't seen a number comparable to what we do with animals. But also when it comes to crops, there's a difference between rights violations and incidental deaths. So for example, when we drive cars, thousands of people die from car crashes every single day, right? But we still drive them, right? So same thing with crops. I'm not suggesting that humans go extinct, right? We gotta eat. We gotta eat something, right? But There's a difference between growing our crops and when an animal tries to eat that food, we either keep it off a pesticide or we kill it if we have to, versus intentionally breeding billions of animals just to kill them for food when we don't have to. So that's what I would say to that. That would be my best.
You're still killing wildlife, right? I feel like, doesn't that conflict with the definition you gave us?
So my definition of veganism is trying to prevent rights violations, not trying to prevent all death, right? Just by being alive, we are responsible for things dying, and vice versa, right? So obviously, like I said, for what you're suggesting, my view is I would have to advocate for either human suicide or some type of extreme scenario to where we don't kill anything. And that's just not going to happen, right? But there's a difference between murder, which is when you intentionally kill somebody, and accidental deaths due to, or incidental deaths due to crop production or something like that.
Yeah, but I feel like I feel like that's still considered murder. You know what I mean? Because I mean, those animals are coming in, and you're willingly killing them.
So would you say that killing somebody in a car accident is the same as going up to somebody and shooting them in the head?
No.
Okay, so similar, right? If we grow crops, right? First of all, like I said, when we tear down or get land ready for farming, a lot of those animals don't actually die. They do run away or they relocate, right? And again, unless I could see some actual like science, some figures, then maybe but again, even if we go by that, right? The numbers are so incomparable with because just land animals, we kill billions of them, right? Just on Thanksgiving alone, it's
What do you mean by what's a land like? Land
so not counting marine life, okay, like fish, stuff like that. So just land animals, just on Thanksgiving alone, we kill 46 million turkeys. Just on that one day, 46 million turkeys. So, and not to mention most of the, like I said, even if we are concerned with crop deaths, most of those deaths are because we grow more crops than we need to feed to the animals directly. So I would say, like, I see what you're suggesting where, oh, well, you're not perfect either. You still are responsible for animal deaths.
I'm not even trying to attack you. That's just
No, but
I've heard about it, and I'm like, well, that's kind of conflicting.
Yeah, it's a common argument, and I hear where you're coming from. And if there was a way for us to live with having 0 animal deaths, I would, of course, want to live in that world. But at the very least, the minimum would be not intentionally breeding them, keeping them in cages, putting them in factories, and slaughtering them by the billions.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So if people didn't like mass produce like animal life to eat, let's say it was just hunting, like you had like a certain season to get like your meat protein, sure, would you be a proponent of that, or would you still be against that?
Well, let me ask you this: would you hunt dogs and eat them?
I wouldn't, but I know there's countries that do. I guess it's a cultural.
Well, I was going to ask, why wouldn't you hunt dogs and eat them?
Well, because here, I have a dog, you know what I mean? So I don't have a deer, but I've also seen videos of hunters going to kill a deer, and then as soon as they have like a face-to-face interaction with them, they don't. They're like, right, oh, no, I can't.
Right, and I guess my argument would be, what's the morally substantive difference, right? Why do we immediately go, okay, I would never hunt and kill a dog for food, but not do that to cows, chickens, and pigs, right? What's the difference, right? Because they're just as sentient. Pigs are actually more intelligent than dogs. Cows are like farm dogs. If you see videos of them, they're jumping, they like to be pet. So what is the difference there?
I think, honestly, with dogs, like, originally, I think they were originally domesticated for a purpose. Mm-hmm. So they're like work, like, you know what I mean? Like, one, they were used for hunting. So sure, I think, that actually is a weird, cycle where, you're actually using an animal to go hunt and kill another animal.
Right.
And it's all just part of, the life cycle, so.
Right, but you made this statement where you said dogs are domesticated for a purpose. Mm-hmm. That's actually alluding to the fact that all these animals were, maybe not the exact species, but all these animals were wild at some point, right? And what we did as humans is we chose what animals served what purpose, right? Dogs are not naturally man's best friend, right? Maybe we either found them more as a companion, or maybe due to circumstances, we just didn't eat them, right, for whatever reason. So we chose to domesticate them and breed them and keep them as pets. And with cows, chickens, and pigs, we chose to eat those, right? Probably because they were the easiest to eat. Like, face it, cows do not fight back. Chickens are very easy to catch, right? But, they were probably the easiest to domesticate, right? But might does not equal right. just because I can take advantage of somebody weaker or smaller or dumber than me doesn't mean that it's morally right for me to do so. And same thing with animals.
I think also though with the dog argument, like chickens and like I don't know about cows. Like I really don't know anything about I know a lot about chickens, but like in terms of like cows, like those are animals that are like already like in their own like they kind of like have like a denser population of them. You know what I mean? They breed a lot and stuff like that. Whereas I feel like canines are kind of like they are pack animals, but like they're like few and far in between. I could be wrong about that, but I feel like you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that, but the problem with that is all of these cows, chickens, and pigs, their population is so big because we artificially breed them. So farmers, you know, they breed the cows themselves. When the babies are born, they take the babies away, they put it back in, you know, so, and that's specifically for dairy also, where they take the babies away. So we do breed them by the billions, right? So their population, we actually don't know what their natural reproductive rate would be.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So that's what I would say to that. Like, you know, dogs, we regulate their reproduction more so because we care about them more, and be like every pet owner, they usually get their dog neutered, or if they don't, they're breeding them to sell to make more puppies. But cows, chickens, and pigs we modify specifically to overproduce because it's a business, because we make money off their flesh essentially.
Yeah, I think every animal also is at this point like has a domesticated purpose in a sense. Like people also overbreed dogs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I know that. I mean, they overbreed dogs to be pets.
Right.
As they overbreed cows to be food and chickens to whatever, you know what I mean?
Right, and the question is, what is the difference where we treat one species of animal as like nicely and we care about them? Even hitting a dog is animal abuse, but slitting a cow's throat, hanging them upside down, beating them, bolt gunning them is considered standard practice. Not to mention the fact that we gas chamber pigs and they squeal and they're in horrific amounts of pain. So like that's a term called speciesism, right? It's similar to any other type of bigotry like racism, sexism, homophobia, where you discriminate against one type of animal for no reason when there's no difference between, they're all sentient animals, right? So it's a similar form of bigotry.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's an interesting theory there, for sure.
So I guess at this point, like what justification would you have to not be vegan?
Personally, I enjoy. I grew up on it. You know what I mean. Culturally, my family's from Latin America. Okay. It's a big part of our culture. More dense protein. It's more substantial. I think. Like in terms of like, I feel like a piece of steak is gonna give me more than like. I have to eat way more like vegetables to like equal that amount of protein and that amount of whatever. You know what I mean. So like, people can survive longer off of, you know, like like an ounce of steak than like an ounce of broccoli. You know what I mean?
So, I guess what you're comparing, right? You're comparing protein-dense meat to obviously like micronutrient-dense vegetables. But obviously there are significantly better sources of protein for plants, right? Tofu, tempeh, black beans, chickpeas, lentils. In a cup of lentils, you have like 15 to 20 grams of protein. There's a lot of protein in lentils. And you don't have to rely on meat to get that. All the best peer-reviewed research shows that you can be perfectly healthy at all stages of life, from pregnancy into adulthood, not to mention no higher risk of protein deficiency. And when it comes to the cultural argument, I get, look, my family's Russian, right? I'm a first generation American. Russians eat a lot of meat, right? It's a lot of meat, a lot of dairy specifically. But when it comes to that, I would argue that culture doesn't equal moral, right? So just because something is cultural, right? Human sacrifice is also cultural, right? Cannibalism, child sexual abuse is rampant in a lot of ancient cultures. But we chose to get away from that lifestyle because it's immoral, because it causes harm. So I'd say the same thing. And especially being from Latin America, like black beans and rice, chock full of protein. And that's really like, instead of eating your meat, you just eat some extra beans. And, you know, as far as the morality, like, here, I'll let you stamp one. And one more thing I was going to say, as far as the taste, would you say that liking something is a justification for an action, right? So if I like kicking puppies in the face, right? That's animal abuse and that's immoral. But my only justification is, well, I really like it. It gives me pleasure, right?
I think it's not a. I mean, when you talk about like justifications and stuff like that.
Well, that hand be up, man.
That doesn't matter. I'll
Yeah.
How you doing? Not so bad. How you doing? Pretty good. I had a store at some point.
Oh,
Yeah.
I am
Holy
right.
shit.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, what was I saying?
I said liking something being a justification.
So justification. I mean, like now it gets really into like philosophical fucking morals, ethics, and all this stuff, which is always gonna be like a gray topic because although it might not be justified in terms of like no, that's fucked up, right? Like kicking a puppy in the face, like why would you do that? But also like in your own like bubble, because like you know what I mean, like things are. It's like rings, so like you have a justification for your actions, and there's justifications for societal action, and there's, you know what I mean? It just keeps going out. So it might be justified to you to do something like that, but it won't be justifiable maybe in society.
So that's what I'm advocating, right? Morality is subjective. You said it right? Just like I mentioned earlier, some cultures, cannibalism is perfectly ethical, right? But what I'm advocating, I'm trying to test, when I talk to somebody like you or individuals, I'm trying to see where your morality lies, because I would argue that most people who try and be good people who don't want to cause harm would say that, oh, if you like kicking puppies, you shouldn't be allowed to do that because it's immoral, because it causes harm.
There's also no purpose to it, you know what I mean? Why are you kicking a puppy?
Like I mentioned, if we don't need meat to survive, if we don't need meat to get protein, then killing billions of animals, also we do it because we want to, because we like the taste.
You also don't need like black beans to survive, you know what I mean? But
well, you need protein. You do need some sort of protein.
That's the micronutrient. But like, you know what I mean? Like it's found in either or, so that's why people, you know what I mean?
Well, the difference is when you eat black beans, there's no rights violations involved in eating black beans, right? Apart from maybe industry malpractice or something like that. So like that's the argument, is like, okay, well, yes, we all have the choice to kill that animal or to eat those black beans, but why should you go for the black beans instead of the animals? Because one causes harm, suffering, death, and the other one either greatly reduces it or doesn't at all.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think at this advance in society and like in where we are in life, essentially like for you, like you know what I mean? Like if this was like 2,000 years back, we would still be hunting animals and killing them.
True.
Animals kill animals to survive.
But 2,000 years back, there'd be racism, there'd be sexism, there'd be not forget about marital rape, there'd be rape just everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So we've progressed so far morally to recognize that these actions are immoral, right? This is the next step, right? This is the next thing that we have to recognize, and you don't have to do that, right? You don't have to act like,
So yeah, but I guess my point is like, I don't think it's immoral for you to not be vegan, because it's just a part of like life, and you know what I mean. Animals eat animals. We are technically a mammal, so we're animals. So
Correct.
We eat other animals. So I don't think it's like a ethical thing. You know what I mean? Because if animals don't really care about violence, I mean, have you seen Nature as Metal? Do you know that account? Have you ever?
I don't know the account.
All right.
Yes, I do. Yes,
yeah.
I do.
So so that account is, that account is essentially like you see all the violent stuff that happens on that.
Well,
and
what I would argue is, would you want to be in that environment where those violent things happen, right? So the argument I always say is, if an alien, because we're the apex predator, right? Sure. If an alien species came down and we're smarter, stronger, everything better than us, right? They became the apex predator. Would you want to live in a world where they do what we do to animals, or would you want them to have that moral agency, that moral consistency? They go, okay, these humans, while they are lesser than me, they are sentient, they feel the way I feel, so I'm not going to cause harm to them, right? Which world would you rather live in? And we can create that world.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know if I would want to live in necessarily that world, but if that was a reality, I would definitely
right? But
I would fight for it. You know what I mean?
But who chooses the reality, right? This whole animal thing with our modern society, we create that, right? It's not like it just exists because of like some type of thing we can't stop, right? Humans literally create businesses and industries off of this, and we perpetuate that, right? It takes individuals, just like any other bigotry or immoral act, to say, you know what, I'm not going to contribute to that, and we see the effect. Like, there's so many vegan options everywhere now.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Good job, love.
personally, like, realistically, I would just continue doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I support like people wanting to be vegan. I'm kind of like, I just support people like individuality and people just wanting to do what they want to do.
Right.
And you know, I think if you feel like strongly about it and you want to continue to try and make that change, you know, like more power to you. I have nothing ill to say about it. That's just kind of my opinion and my view.
Well, I'll leave.
If they could, you know, find a way to not be as immoral to animals. Like I said, I guess the perfect reality would just be to like
Vegan.
No, I would say like you have like a certain season to go and hunt deer or whatever season.
Man, but I don't think you could be moral and end a life that doesn't want to end. You know what I mean?
I think it's honestly more moral and ethically sound to shoot an animal like that you're hunting than, you know, when you see a pack of wolves literally tearing a baby deer apart and it's still alive halfway through that.
I would argue then, like, let's say dogs who die of cancer, who maybe get hit by cars, right? Would you say that we should end dogs' lives prematurely just because those things could happen?
So I think, well, you're now getting into like hypothetical stuff and like.
No, I'm being serious.
Hypothetically, if we never domesticated dogs, I'm sure people would still eat them. You know what I mean? It's just not the reality we live in.
No, not eating dogs. I'm saying you made the argument that because deer may have more violent deaths than wild, then it's actually better for us to kill them prematurely. What I'm arguing is, would you accept that argument for anything, even humans, right? Humans die in horrific ways. That doesn't mean that every human who lives to 35, we peacefully put down just in case, just because they could die horrific deaths, right? So it's about freedom. It's about giving them that opportunity
There's
to
no
live.
reason to kill that human, is there?
Well, like I said, some cultures would argue, right?
Well, I mean, like, in whatever you're saying, you know what I mean? Like, if there's no reason to kill someone, then why would you?
Like I'm using your own logic, right? The argument to kill them is to prevent them from having violent deaths.
No,
right?
that's not the argument. My point is, I think that that's more moral, but there's a purpose behind killing it because you're going to eat it.
But how could it be more moral when you're prematurely ending a life?
Because you want to eat.
But like we already agreed, right? All the best research shows you don't need animal products to eat, right, to survive. Okay. So if you don't need something, it's a want. And if you want it and it causes harm, how we were kind of losing a consistency there.
Well, I've already touched upon this, but I think it's just like a instinctive thing, like, you know what I mean? As much as like we want to like be separated from natural intuition and whatnot, it is what it is. Like, people eat animals and animals eat animals and birds eat bugs, and it's just
right. But we can recognize that we're not primal, right? Look, you're wearing jeans, right, outside of a bar, right? So like we remove ourselves from every other aspect of primal activity, right? Like, and not to mention how we get these I think it's over 95% of animal products are factory farmed. So we're not living primally. We live in the comfort of modern society because it leads to better life, right? So I would argue that, like, I think using the primal like argument is kind of a fallback to like a justification.
I'm not necessarily trying to fall back on it. I think it's just reality. Like, as much as we want to be removed, we still have very instinctive things going back to psychology. Like, it is what it is. I'm not, you know what I mean?
So would you say that like sexual assault, like sex, is instinctive?
Sex, yes.
Okay. So you're saying that throughout nature, right? Sexual assault is. I think we agree that sexual assault has been rampant. It still is, right? Yeah. So some people would argue, well, it's just guys' psychology. Well, it's science, it's biology, right? We can't help it. We need to have sex, right? I would argue that we can control that, whether it may be natural, maybe sexual assault occurred, maybe that's why we're all here. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean we continue to promote a behavior that we know causes harm.
For sure, and I think that also dives into like chemical imbalances, and you know what I mean? Like, sure. I wouldn't say that like I could throw a rock at a random dude and like, you know, it's not like 90% chance that he's a rapist, but you know what I mean? Like, it could, there's 10% chance he could be, but I think that all comes down to someone's actual psychology and like whether they're like just a fucked up person or not. You know what I mean?
Sure, I guess what I was saying is you were appealing to nature almost, and I'm saying that there are a lot of other things in nature that we've recognized are horrific and we've chosen to remove. So why don't we do that with animal products, right?
Because I think that as of right now, and this is like, I'm just trying to answer your question, but like I think essentially like society just hasn't as like a whole, like on a global level, just hasn't recognized it as horrific as some people may, you know what I mean?
But don't you want to be part, like, that was the same thing for racism, man, for sexism, for all these horrible things.
I mean, there's still tons of countries that are very racist, you know what I mean?
That's true, and like, don't you want to be a part of that progression? You know, I guess that's what I'm drilling, because especially if we, you know, like I said, I guess I'll leave it on there. I don't want to take up all your time, but
I do have one point that I also want to bring up, something, so in the perfect reality where we don't kill animals, right?
Well, we don't commit rights violations. Or are you talking about what I said when no animals die, like hypothetically?
Yeah.
Oh, hypothetically. Okay.
So like, how does that like in term like, because like, you know, those animals also need places to live and you know what I mean, all that stuff. Like, obviously you can't really stop the whole, you know, like progress, and people are going to expand and the world's becoming overpopulated, and you know, there are species of animals that are overpopulated. Like deers sometimes can be like super abundant, sometimes they're not. They're like pandas are very not abundant. You know what I mean? So like if we just didn't kill any animals, let's say, where would all these extra animals go?
Good question. So again, like in the hypothetical I gave, I'm saying if there was a way for no negative consequences to happen and we could get food without killing them, that's what I was talking about. But in a vegan world, I'll answer in a vegan world, I'm not against controlling animal populations if it poses a threat to us, right? For example, if there's an abundance of rats running around and they carry diseases that are like the bubonic plague that are killing humans, get rid of those rats. Like, I'm not against protecting human lives when the animals are causing issues. Like if deer are running into the street causing car wrecks, taking people's lives, I am all for controlling that population, right? But like I said, there's a big difference between doing that, like only controlling it when it's necessary, versus intentionally breeding them, profiting off them, using them for entertainment, killing them for food by the billions.
Yeah, the
it's a total
thing
difference.
I don't fuck with. Like, I don't like when people use animals for entertainment.
But why not? That's a purpose. That is
It's not a purpose like eating. Eating is you need to eat to live.
But you don't need to eat animal products, right?
Yeah, but
so
you can live your whole life without any entertainment.
you could live your whole life with animal products.
Yeah, but I think that, you know, like you look for abundance in, like, food is food. Regardless of what you pick, there are species that don't eat, they're like completely herbivores.
True.
There are species that are omnivores, and there are species that are carnivores. You know what I mean? There are people who are vegan, there are people who are vegetarian, people who only eat, you know what I mean? It is.
But if you're talking about a bunch of food, it's actually more inefficient to raise these animals. 'Cause like I said, the majority of crops are fed to animals. It's horrible for the environment. It uses way more water, way more land. And the only way to do it sustainably, quote unquote, is with factory farms. So that's really the thing, is like, you know, I get where you're coming, like in all of our minds, food we've been taught is like, oh, you gotta eat, and that's true. But you don't need to eat animal products. And in fact, it's way more inefficient, and it actually is a big contributor to most of our chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, cancers, and all of that is peer-reviewed study. And I'll give you a resource, but yeah, I mean, does that, you know what I'm coming?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But I mean, what I was gonna end on is like, again, I consider myself an animal lover, right? I consider myself a human lover. I don't want to discriminate against any sentient animal that can feel pain, feel joy, have their own experiences. So veganism is really the only logically consistent view